And petrol prices are just one example. New numbers this week show that those companies are charging way more than they need to. Don't get us started on supermarkets. Why do Aussies pay less for our cheese than we do? Well, it comes down to the rules that businesses have to follow. We don't have enough of them in New Zealand. The ones we do have let them get away with way too much. That's according to Rebecca Stevenson. She's a business journalist from interest.co.nz, and she has written a scathing piece about businesses not being held to account. She joins us now, and Bex, it seems like the Wild West out there. What are some specific examples that you're worried about?
I think I mentioned, in my article that I'm extremely concerned about animal welfare. I'm very concerned about workplace safety and our workers being maimed and killed while they're working. There's also the forestry industry. We're seeing this terrible destruction, in Gisborne and in the East Coast that seems to continually happen over and over again. So there's just a multitude of examples, I think, where we're really being let down, I think, by our regulatory environment.
This hasn't happened overnight, has it, Rebecca? How do we get ourselves into this mess?
It's a really long and winding road. You can trace it back to the 1980s when we went through this massive deregulation and also privatisation of a lot of our state assets. And sort of from that point on, that legislation has always sort of had a business-friendly slant, I guess you could say. And it again comes back to that idea of the regulators thinking more about what is going to benefit the industries that we are regulating, as opposed to thinking, how can we get good outcomes for the public with how we're regulating? There's a real big disconnect there, and it's been happening for years, and it's just enshrined in so much of our legislation, and we need to unwind that. Otherwise, we just get these very sort of piecemeal, incremental changes.
Why businesses just say, look, more regulation, more compliance, that's more cost. More cost means we either hand it on to the consumer or people lose jobs?
Yeah, look, they always make that argument. I think it's totally redundant. One of the fantastic things about the pandemic, I think, is people are really taking a hard look at what's going on around them. And I think we need to buy back in to New Zealand in the same way that business has sort of bought New Zealand over this time. So we need to be a counterbalance, I think, as the public to them. They are always going to say what is in their interest, and we need to look at it through that lens.
For families at home that are making really tough choices about where to spend their money, on their gas, on their food, how much of the cost of living struggle do you think we can put down to what you're talking about?
Well, look, there's the Productivity Commission has said, that this is a drain on our economy, and we also have data. I think the Commerce Commission has estimated that sort of anti-competitive behaviour can put on an extra cost of between 18 and 20%. It's hard to tease out in a high inflationary environment the exact cost, but we know that we pay very high prices for a lot of things in New Zealand, and we've allowed that to happen because of the structure. We can unwind this, we can change the rules.
Well, thank you for that slightly depressing interview, Bex, but you've got us all riled up. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, kia ora, welcome along to the project, everyone. Look, Mark Richardson is here tonight. Speaking of getting riled up, Mark, are you going to join the people on the streets and protest against this?
Well, as you know, I'm an enthusiastic capitalist.
Yes.
But, when you've got a situation where you've got everyday common New Zealanders, let's say, operating, because of the cost of living, operating at a personal loss, and then you hear stories of businesses who we need to buy goods off doubling profits, yeah, it's enough to turn me socialist, without a doubt.
Wow.
So what you're saying, Mark, is that you didn't really care when it was happening to other people, but now it's happening to you.
Yeah, but, Kano, this is how change occurs, right? It's not how many people are angry, it's who gets angry.
Right.
And now that I'm angry, we can expect change.
Well, good. I hope so, because I do think that there is something really powerful in what Bex is doing there. If you take those things individually, like, some dead chickens and, some logs lying on the beaches, it doesn't amount to much and it can make you feel really sad. But finding that thread is a really powerful thing. I never thought I would be excited about regulatory change. But I am. Look out.